The Varroa destructor mite was first detected in Australia in June 2022 during routine checks at the port of Newcastle. It's been in Queensland since at least March 2025. How it got to Australia has been the point of speculation and contention. In March this year, a federal government report ruled out it was brought in through illegal importation of queens or bees, but could not confirm where Varroa came from or when it arrived. But what's certain is it's here, and it's here to stay.
All right, fellas, take me through the process.
Right, so what we're doing here now is the alcohol wash. We have to have 150 mils of alcohol in here, and basically with these particular shakers we got, if you bring it up to the bottom of the sieve that's inside there, that gives you 150 mils. Put that on there for the moment so we don't spill it, but the bees are going to go into there to be shaken.
So we now inspect the hive, just to see if the queen's laying.
How's it look?
Yeah, it's good, laying well. This time of the year.
Half a cup of bees, it's about 300 into there.
What are you learning here, Trevor?
There's about 8 or 9 at least mites there in the bottom where you can see.
They're so tiny. Yeah.
10, 12, 14, 16, 17, about 17 now with the extra shakes.
Will this kill the bees?
Yes.
So every test you do, you have to kill 300 bees. So if you're doing 1,600 hives, there's a lot of dead bees.
Eradication has been ruled out, which has led to a raft of ways to try to manage the mite.
The main organic one is an oxalic-based treatment. It comes in both a powdered form, which you can then volatilise or put into a liquid in what they call an oxalic dribble, or you can use these new strips that have been manufactured in Argentina and have been just arrived in Australia. None of these are a silver bullet. They're only a knockdown and will last anywhere between 3 and 6 weeks, depending on level of infection.
Murray says these treatments are best only when you know your hives are infected, and a lot require the use of gas masks and safety gear.
How expensive is all of this stuff?
It's really expensive. Most treatments at a minimum will cost you somewhere between $6 to, in some cases, $10 a treatment. So across 1,600 hives every 6 weeks, you're starting to rack up some serious dollars.
Not to mention time.
And that doesn't include your time.
Since Murray discovered Varroa mite in his hives, he reckons he's lost somewhere between 10 and 20% of hives directly to Varroa or to the diseases and viruses associated with it.
We no longer are focusing on the production of liquid honey. That will fall out of our business mix because of the sheer amount of physical time it takes just to keep the bees alive. Pollination services will be the main focus because it'll be the only way that we'll be able to generate income from the exertion of checking, maintaining and treating the hives.
Trevor Whitehead says that unlike Murray, who is sticking with beekeeping for now, a lot of others haven't weathered the incursion.
We know that about 15 commercial beekeepers have already exited the industry, sold up.
And that's going to be an issue for more industries than just honey and beekeeping.
The veggie growers and that will suddenly start to realise now that those free pollination they got from feral hives, or some of them, like up on the granite belt, I know they had a swarm that came, put it in an old fruit box and shoved it around the back of the shed. Well, they'll be gone, and so the pollination will have to be done by managed honey beehives into the future. So a lot of them hopefully will learn and won't learn through a financial shock.
It can take 2 to 3 years for a mite infestation to build to a level that collapses a colony of wild or feral honeybees.
And we're seeing that from some of the evidence down south too. That those
Rob Stevens is the manager of Biosecurity Queensland's Varroa Mite Innovation and Resilience Initiative.
And now we're worried about when it moves into other zones like Central Queensland and North Queensland.
He says up to 2/3 of our food is pollinated by bees. The impact of Varroa mite is a threat to Australia's food security.
A lot of the pollination is done for free at the moment, or incidental pollination from those wild bees. Eventually those wild bees are going to die out of a consequence of Varroa, and we are going to have those industries become much more reliant on commercial beekeepers for pollination services.
The Queensland fruit and vegetable growers know this will be a big issue. Terry Quinn is their head of projects. And he reckons preparation for both growers and beekeepers is key.
Pollination needs to be thought about well before the flowering because the industry is going to change. The availability of beehives, the availability of entire pollination systems, the availability of wild bees is going to be completely changed. So what we're looking for the horticultural growers to do is to actually speak to those beekeepers, understand what their expectations are, and then get closer to their beekeeper because the passive pollination will no longer be acceptable within the ecosystem.
With the apples, because apples big crop in this industry here, in this area, about 90% pollination with the bees. So the apple boys, obviously this year you said will be okay, or fairly okay, but the season after, obviously the price of the hives will go up. But for some growers like zucchini growers and blueberry growers, they're 100% reliant on bees for pollination.
I think you'll find that commercial beekeepers, some of them will be expanding to meet the need.
Dr. Diana Lehman, who describes herself as an unretired science researcher, was the main speaker. Her expertise is in biological control of agricultural pests.
Largely in livestock, and a bit of a different spin using fungi as the agent. So they're called biopesticides, so they're just like an insecticide, but instead of having a chemical active ingredient, you have fungal spores of a species of fungus which is evolved to kill insects naturally.
Dr. Lehman says the idea isn't new, and it's also not as straightforward as relying on chemical options, which can wipe out pests entirely. But with Varroa mite in Australia showing resistance to chemical treatments, will biological controls work?
A biological like this will work very differently, and it will give another suite in the tools of Varroa mite management. And there's always actually been a lot of organic beekeepers who did not want to use a lot of chemicals, who were wanting something like this, because that's a feature of our beekeeping industry in Australia, that we always were very low chemical in the past, and that put us aside from everybody else.
In addition to Dr. Lehman's work, New Zealand University researchers have found a new biopesticide which can make the Varroa destructor mite infertile. Entomologists there have described it as the holy grail. In northern Australia, at the port of Townsville, these bees are doing an important job. They're not on this empty block to make honey or pollinate. Their sole purpose is Varroa mite detection. So far they've been clean, which is a huge relief. Scientist Rob Stevens has rallied the community beekeeping club to monitor the situation.
Townsville's a key place for us. There is an open pathway. We have had Asian honeybees and Varroa destructor's lesser cousin, Varroa jacobsoni, has come into the port of Townsville several times before. And we're worried about the next big bad threat that could come as well.
We don't get a lot of honey off these hives. Normally, we're probably going to get honey off once a year. So it's mainly just for monitoring in the port for any incursions that may occur.
How long have they been here?
They have been here for about 3 years, but we have been monitoring through other areas around the port for about 10 years.
The club members use the drone comb and alcohol wash tests to search for the Varroa mite. Like most beekeepers worried about Varroa mite, its associated diseases and potential loss of hives, Franna was reconsidering her commitment to her bees, but she's trying to look at the positives of the threat.
A lot of people don't realise that bees are livestock, and livestock needs to be monitored, maintained, health checked, whatever, whether it's a bee or stud bulls. It all needs to be looked after and managed, dealt with, fed if necessary, culled if necessary, and basically it's going to sort a lot of irresponsible people out.
So it's critically important that you guys are monitoring, because we're not going to know it's here unless you guys are checking your hive.
The Varroa mite is currently the biggest threat to bees, but Rob Stevens says they're not the only worry.
The big one we're worried about is deformed wing virus and also tropilaelaps mite, which is a mite that's found all through Southeast Asia. So we really think Northern Australia could be an entrance pathway that might come in.
And what do they look like?
They're very similar to Varroa mites, a little bit different in size and shape, and they don't spend as long as their life cycle in what we call the phoretic phase. So they're a little bit harder to find because they spend the majority of their time underneath the capped brood. So it's about coming up with new ways of doing surveillance. You're not going to pick them up as easily with an alcohol wash.
Rob and the Queensland DPI are looking to technology for help.
We are partnering with some tech organisations and we are looking at using AI technology, which is going to potentially help beekeepers in the future, that hopefully they don't have to keep cracking open their hive and testing every 4 weeks. They might be able to just look at an app on their phone and that's going to tell them, you've got this level of mites, you need to go in and treat. We're not quite there yet, but this is what we're looking to in the future.
He says it's not a matter of if, but when mites will be found everywhere in Queensland. And at the time of editing this story, Townsville still remained free of the Varroa mite. But Rob has faith beekeepers can meet the challenge they're facing.
We think beekeepers are an innovative bunch. They've been doing this for a long time. Varroa has spread throughout the world, but we're sure that Australians and Queensland beekeepers will find interesting ways to manage Varroa in their local area.